Why is Goblin Piledriver never sad? Because he has protection from the blues.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. I got some exciting stuff for you today in addition to some brand new commanders. I wanted to let you know that I've listened to a lot of the feedback and we've moved away from having graphics on playmats and now plan to stick with monocolored ones to help make it more clear what's on the board. In today's game, Eric is playing his newly made Baru Wurm Speaker deck, and he keeps Crossing Grip, Calni Ambush, Eternal Witness, Sifter Wurm, Forest, Wood Elves, and Farhaven Elves. Maximus is playing Sivitri Dragon Master, keeping an Island, Tainted Isle, Expedition Map, Umbilicus, Endless Evil, Relic of Legends, and a Shimmer Dragon. I am trying out my Otrimi deck again, keeping a Volrath Stronghold, Season of Growth, Sea Dasher Octopus, Crystal Shard, Hinterland Harbor, Flooded Grove, and a Glowstone Recluse. Mika is playing Tivit, Seller of Secrets, and keeps a Plains, an Island, Erdwall Illuminator, and They Shall Know No Fear, Marsh Flats, and Evolving Wilds. Maximus wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays an Island. He then casts Expedition Map, passing. Eric draws and plays the Calni Ambush as a land, which comes in tapped and passes. Mika plays an Evolving Wilds. I just play a tapped Hinterland Harbor. Max draws, playing an Island, and then pays the 2 to crack the Expedition Map, going to find Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. Eric plays a Forest, and then passes. On his end step, Mika cracks Evolving Wilds to find a Swamp. Mika draws for turn and plays an Island. He then plays out Erdwall Illuminator, passing. I draw and play a land and pay 2 for a Beastcaller Savant. Maximus has another Island for turn, and then taps 3 for a Relic of Legends. Eric draws and plays a Bonder's Enclave as his land for turn, and is then able to cast a Farhaven Elf. He finds a Forest, putting it into play, and passing after that. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He pays 3 for Raffine, Scheming Seer, and moves to combat. He swings the Illuminator at max and gets to Connive, discarding a land so it doesn't get a +1/+1 counter. Max then takes the 1, and Mika passes after that. I've got a Volrath Stronghold as my land for turn, and then tap a green and a colorless for a Season of Growth. Maximus plays a Mistvault Bridge which comes in tapped, and has enough to cast Umbilicus before passing. Eric chooses to bounce his Farhaven Elf to Umbilicus, and then draws for turn. He replays the Elf, going to find a Forest, and passing. Mika takes 2 from Umbilicus, and then draws. He goes to combat and swings the Illuminator at max again, and Raffine at Eric. He discards 2 non-land permanents to Connive, and gives Raffine 2 +1/+1 counters, with Eric taking 3 while Max takes the 1 again. He then plays a Marsh Flats, and passes, and on his end step, I mutate a Sea Dasher Octopus onto the Savant, and get to draw a card from Season of Growth. I take 2 from Umbilicus, and draw. I then go to combat, and swing the Sea Dasher Octopus Savant at max, drawing a card as it deals damage. I then pay 3 for a Crystal Shard, but with no land to play, have to pass. Maximus takes 2 from Umbilicus, and then draws. He plays a Myriad Landscape which comes in tapped, and casts Trading Post, one of my favorite artifacts. Eric once more bounces the Farhaven Elf on his upkeep, and then draws for turn. He plays Wood Elves to get an untapped Forest, and then Farhaven Elf to go and get a tapped one. With that, he passes, and on his end step, Mika cracks the Marsh Flats to find a tapped Godless Shrine. Mika takes 2 instead of bouncing a creature, and draws. He goes to combat and swings Raffine at me and the Illuminator at max. Once more, he discards 2 non-lands to the Connive triggers and gives the Illuminator 2 +1/+1 counters. This has Max and I both taking 3. And in his second main phase, Mika plays a Plains and then casts a Company Commander, passing. I take 2 and draw. I mutate a Glowstone Recluse onto my Sea Dasher Octopus Savant, drawing a card from Season of Growth and giving it 2 +1/+1 counters. I finally hit a land with the Temple of Mystery, and I get to scry 1, bottoming it and passing. Maximus takes 2 from his own Umbilicus and draws. He plays a Shimmer Dragon and just passes after that. Eric is thrilled to bounce his Wood Elves on his upkeep and then draws. He replays it and then has enough mana for a Seedborn Muse, passing and untapping with Mika. Mika bounces his Company Commander and then draws. He plays an island and goes to combat. He swings the Illuminator and Soldier token at me and Rafine at Eric, despite Eric warning him not to attack him. Eric follows through on his threat by responding to the Connive trigger on the Soldier token and uses Beast Within on Rafine. Rafine dies, and Mika makes a Beast token. He then resolves the Connive trigger, drawing 2, and discards a land and a non-land to give the Soldier a +1/+1 counter. Eric then takes 3, and I take 2. In his post-combat main phase, Mika plays Tivit. Everyone except for me chooses treasures, and Mika makes 4 treasures and 1 clue. He passes after that. I take my 2 rather than bounce a creature, and draw. I play a Cephalid Constable, and then scry 1 to the bottom from Season of Growth. I then cast a Baleful Strix, and rip a land off the top as I draw a card as it enters. I then play a Swamp, and pass. During my end step, Eric casts Krosan Grip on Max's trading post. Max takes his 2, and draws, and plays a Tome of the Spirit Dragon as his land for turn. He then plays a Spellskite, and passes. Eric once more bounces the Wood Elves, and draws. He plays a Sandworm Convergence, which Mika responds by countering it with Deny the Witch, and this also deals 6 damage to Eric, and with nothing else, Eric passes. Mika bounces a Soldier token to the Umbilicus trigger, and then draws. He goes to combat, swinging Tivit at Eric, and connecting, and we all vote for treasure. In his post-combat main phase, he plays a Plains, and then casts Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, uptaking the Walker to draw a card. He then moves to his end step, untapping 2 lands, and passing. I take my 2 and draw. I play another Swamp for turn, and then mutate a Chittering Harvester onto the Baleful Strix, making everyone sacrifice a creature. Max responds by tapping his Spellskite and Umbilicus to draw a card, and then sacrifices the Spellskite. Eric sacrifices the Farhaven Elf, and Mika sacrifices a Soldier token. Going to combat, I swing the Harvester at Teferi, and I then pass. During my end step, Max cracks the Myriad Landscape to find 2 swamps, and then taps the rest of his artifacts to draw another card. Max takes 2 rather than bounce a creature, and draws. He plays a Tainted Isle, and then swings the Shimmer Dragon at Eric. With no blocks declared, Max casts a Whir of Invention, where X is 6. Getting a Sharding Sphinx, but forgetting that Shimmer Dragon isn't an artifact. Not wanting to wind it back though, he decides to continue through with Eric taking the hit, and Max then sadly passing. Eric takes 2 to the Umbilicus, and draws. He plays out a Palaka Wurm, and gains 7 life. After that, he passes, and during his end step, Mika flashes in a Kaldis Assassin as a copy of the Palaka Wurm, which also kills Eric's Palaka Wurm. I also get in on the action and activate the Crystal Shard and try and bounce one of his creatures, but he responds and uses a treasure. Mika takes 2 and draws. He upticks Teferi again to draw a card, and then plays out a Sanguinary Priest before going to combat. He swings Tivit at Eric, and the Palaka Wurm at me. We both take the hit, and for voting, Mika votes for treasure and a clue, while the rest of us vote for treasure. Mika then moves to his end step, untapping 2 lands and passing. I take 2 from Umbilicus and draw. I play a Sanctum of Eternity, and mutate the Insatiable Hemophage onto my Glowstone Recluse stack, draining everyone for 3, drawing a card from the Season of Growth, and putting 2 more +1/+1 counters onto it. I then cast a Nature's Lore for a forest, and go to combat. I swing the Chittering Harvester at Teferi, and Mika lets him die. After that, I pass, and during my end step, Max draws a card with a Shimmer Dragon by tapping some artifacts. Max takes another 2 from the Umbilicus and draws. He plays an island, and then brings out Sivitri and upticks her. Going to combat, he swings a Sharding Sphinx at Eric, who takes the hit, and Max makes a Thopter token. After that, he passes. Eric bounces his Seedborn Muse on his upkeep, and then draws. He plays Aronis' Monument, and then casts a Topiary Stomper and a Wood Elves, going to find more lands. He then plays out an Eternal Witness, and returns to hand a Sandworm Convergence that's in his graveyard. After that, he passes, and during his end step, Mika cracks some clues to draw some cards. Mika takes the 2 from the Umbilicus and draws. He plays a Swamp for turn, and casts an Ultramarine's Honor Guard, paying for the squad 5 times. Max responds by tapping some artifacts to draw a card from the Shimmer Dragon, but unfortunately it's not a counterspell, so the Honor Guard and all the copies resolve. Going to combat, Mika swings Tivit at Eric, the Palaka Wurm and Illuminator at me, and the Sanguinary Priest, Beast Token, and Soldier Token at Max, paying 6 life for the Sivitri trigger. Max blocks a Beast Token with a Thopter, while I declare no blocks. Before damage, I activate Crystal Shard to bounce the Palaka Wurm. Eric unfortunately dies, and Max and I take a big hit. Mika then votes for Treasure and a clue for Tivit, while Max and I both vote Treasure again. With nothing else, Mika passes. I take 2, draw, and play a Reflecting Pool. I mutate Otrimi onto the Chittering Harvester stack, making everyone sacrifice a creature. I then activate a Crystal Shard to at least make Mika use a Treasure token, and then go to combat. I swing Otrimi at Mika, and he takes the 6, and I pass. Max bounces Umbilicus on his upkeep, and then draws. He plays a Mystic Forge, and then casts a Sapphire Medallion. He then taps the Medallion and a Mistfall Bridge, drawing a card, before playing it to Teferi's Ageless Insight. Max then upticks Sivitri, and passes, while Mika cracks his Clue token on the end step to draw a card. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He goes to combat and swings 3 Honor Guard tokens, Tivit, and the Illuminator at me, while the remaining Honor Guards, the Beast token, and the Sanguinary Priest go at Max. With lethal damage on both of us and not enough blockers, even with interaction, Mika wins the game, and we move on to another one. Game review time. So I was really excited to see Baru Wurmspeaker in action, and unfortunately for Eric, this game didn't get to show off very well. Thankfully we filmed a few other ones with the deck, so look forward to future games where he definitely showcases the deck better. I believe Maximus's Sivitri deck was kind of meant to be punishing. Taxing and punishing, with cards like Umbilicus and other ways to really make people have to pay life or pay taxes in order to do stuff. We saw a little bit of it once the commander was out, but overall the Umbilicus really just bounced Wood Elves and kind of annoyed his opponents over the game. Otrimi is a lot of fun, and I find it a little bit more refined than Ramos. Not having to worry about having all 5 colors to hit all the different mutate cards is much easier. And although I run less mutate cards, it does free up some spaces for better targets and better support cards. Mika's Tivit deck was just, I don't know how else to explain it other than I was not expecting much after seeing his opening hand. I like all the new addition for the Warhammer 40,000 cards in the deck, especially the Ultramarine Honor Guard, which I have in my Tristani deck, and seeing that in action just really warmed my heart. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.